Hello, Fiedelbogen here. To my fellow workers in the vineyard, worldwide, greetings. The title of today's talk is The Political Landscape Which Lies Ahead, a Roadmap for the Future. Yes, everybody should have a crystal ball. It is good to look into the future, don't you think so? Today, if it won't impose on you, I'd like to gaze into a crystal and describe what I see there. Or at any rate, what I think I see there. You never know, it might prove useful. And don't forget that prediction is a pivotal point of counter-feminist analysis. I will cover some rather new ground, and although I am discussing the future, I am also talking about many things that are happening this very minute. So that quite a few of these predictions are in fact nothing of the kind. They are already old and familiar. However, we all know that the present is the seedbed of the future. What is presently so may in time become more so. Bearing this in mind, and bearing in mind likewise certain algorithms of historical occurrence which play and replay in every drama that involves the human animal, we may venture in all confidence to paint our canvas in broad strokes that won't go far amiss. I have elsewhere spoken of feminism as a perpetual revolution, and I have made it clear that the end of perpetual revolution would mean the end of feminism as well. Moreover, I have suggested that perpetual revolution carries the seeds of its own demise. However, although I still believe this is the case, I am able to envision certain conditions under which the dynamic of perpetual revolution, hence feminism as a whole, may be artificially fueled and extended, and longer perhaps than many of us might wish to endure. No. Let us not underestimate the intelligence of our enemy, which in many ways resembles that of a highly adaptable virus. Let us rather anticipate that they might have covered the bases more thoroughly than we wish to think, and prepare for the possibility that they have done so in fact. The extension of perpetual revolution would occur, as I project, in the context of a three-tiered social power hierarchy, which is already evident in the world. This three-tiered hierarchy would consist, from top down, of 1. A primary ruling class called the male elite. 2. A secondary ruling class called the overclass. And 3. A more or less immobilized proletariat at the bottom of the heap, simply called the underclass. The male elite makes a tiny percentage of the total population, the overclass a significantly large minority, while the underclass is distinctly the largest human reservoir of the three. In the midst of the three-tiered system, feminism plays a complex catalytic role which our talk will enlarge upon. The transitional zones between these power layers will appear fuzzy when viewed at close quarters, but sharper from a distance. While there is a limited degree of permeability, or upward mobility to use a classic term, it is significant that mobility between zones is growing markedly more difficult. Something very like a caste system seems to be developing. First, I will speak of the male elite. You should first understand that the purpose of this entire system is to secure the overlordship of the male elite. For if in truth there be any such thing as that patriarchy, which feminist theory postulates, the male elite could well indeed merit the title. Thus considered, the irony is quickly apparent in the feminist application of this word to thoughtlessly tar multitudes of men whose veritable power amounts to very little. The most important thing to know about the male elite, or more simply the elite, since many of them have mothers, sisters, wives, and daughters after all, is that they do not think or view the world in nearly the same terms as most of the human race. This is particularly striking in the case of political or ideological categories. Labels such as Democrat, Republican, Liberal, Conservative, Left, Right, Marxist, Fascist, Socialist, and so on barely exist at all for members of the elite. They view the world from a different optic altogether, wired to different emotive triggers and bound by loyalties we needn't hope to unriddle. Consequently, the elite are able to play all sides of all fences with equal pragmatic indifference in the variable service of their instrumental needs. This, in practice, makes them inscrutable puppet masters and, from our point of view, even solipsistic. They are distinctly not us. Therefore, we cannot read them as ourselves. Such aloofness, such cat-like alterity comes naturally to them, and is really no mystery at all. It is the consequence of being so powerful that you can afford to live in your own world and remain oblivious to more generally held sources of meaning. Simply stated, the elite are the high alpha males of planet Earth, the tip-top layer of the pyramid. Through their vast and densely networked lockdown on banking and politics, they control the foundational conditions which determine how our lives will go. Lesser powers cascade from their greater power. No, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy hypothesis. I'll not spend much time talking about the elite. They are in many ways the least interesting portion of my subject, given how they are so remote from the sphere of action that we know. Suffice to say that they are an intricate world unto themselves, by no means monolithic, and that all of this makes them proportionately more difficult to fathom from beneath. The next level down in the three-tiered system is what we term the overclass. In point of numbers, this class far outweighs the elite. In marked contrast to the elite, who would rather keep a shadowy, elusive profile, the overclass constitutes the everyday face of the ruling power structure. The overclass may be understood as the delegated contractual workforce of the elite, responsible for administrative tasks and various domains involving intellectual creativity. Globally considered, they are the upper managers and consultants. In cultural terms, the overclass has certain distinguishing features which mark them off from the underclass. Most apparent to the eye is that they are well-financed and well-heeled. They have, moreover, an unmistakable air of ease and security about them. Their lives are not worm-eaten by debt to any great degree, and being well-connected and well-networked, they have a host of fallback options when things go awry. On the whole, their lives operate smoothly. They are sheltered from the vicissitudes. They have greater access to the means of self-realization in many forms, along with better food, better health care, more aesthetically pleasing physical environments, and a lower degree of stress all around. Finally, they have the means to obtain post-secondary education. Consequently, they are more likely to have done so, which makes them better educated. Well, at least along the lines that are apt to secure social status and political advantage in various forms. An interesting recent development is the rise of the so-called bobo, or bourgeois bohemian class. This has been a result of cultural tectonic shiftings in the earthquake decade of the 1960s. The bobos, being a vital element of the overclass, are certainly a powerful sector in the presently emerging social configuration. This phenomenon would make an interesting study all unto itself. However, as counter-feminist agents of change, what chiefly holds our interest is the relationship between the overclass on the one side and feminism, both ideologically and politically, on the other. The overclass is heavily indoctrinated with the feminist worldview. This has been the case for some time now. It is so, and becoming more so. Infiltration of feminist ideations into the world of post-secondary education, and all education for that matter, has been a principal vector operating to convey this line of influence into the targeted region. Another, running in tandem with the first, is the steady, plodding encroachment of women into vocational areas which are either well-paid, politically influential, physically undemanding, or all three. This process is still underway. It is by no means complete, or even nearing completion. Along with the influx of politically naive women into the sectors mentioned, we may anticipate the arrival of ideological feminists or even feminist cadres. Hence, there will be a replication of the feminist political machine by both formal and informal methods, gravitating always toward a theoretical point of saturation. The objective balance of probability in no way excludes such development. It is no less rational to anticipate such development than to anticipate the contrary. No, I'm not paranoid. What is happening in the workforce is happening simultaneously, if in varied fashion, in other domains, many of which make their impact across the board, in both the overclass and the underclass. The propagation of the feminist worldview, along with the rapid extension of the femplex, is not easily contained within a particular demographic, nor would any such containment suit feminist purposes. However, what is easily contained, or at least regulated, is the mobility of male population from the underclass into the overclass. Yes, if you are male and you want to get out of the underclass, you'll need to pass through certain checkpoints. Consider once again the infiltration of women, and consequently feminist women, into the generally desirable sectors of the working world. The upshot of this is to convert large and growing regions of the vocational landscape into effectively female-dominated, if not feminist-dominated, territory. Next, consider the widespread propagation of anti-male bias in the realm of law, jurisprudence, criminal justice procedure, policies, regulations, and codes of various kinds. Such developments have crept in the night, and will continue so creeping. Feminism's perpetual revolution does not stop rolling until somebody or something sabotages the track and derails it. So in large areas of life, males have undergone something like the totalitarian process where selected groups are listed as so-called objective enemies. Yes, under feminism, men are objective enemies, and politically awakened men are double objective enemies. Such is the psychic miasma that creeps slowly, invisibly, and never sleeps. If it has not yet crept into every possible corner everywhere, this implies no lack of ambition to eventually do so. Such is the present condition of the overclass. It is not feasible to exclude males from the overclass. However, it is certainly possible to exclude males within subtle categories. The growing presence of the feminist political machine, along with a naive acquiescence from the unawakened public, makes possible a system of cultural filters that will exclude men who cannot walk an agonizingly fine line in their deportment. The filters grow steadily more discerning, able to capture finer and finer nuances of personal style by turning the personal into the political in ways more and more microscopic, and setting a hostile assessment on whatever does not implicitly endorse the feminist worldview. If you intend to prosper as a male in the overclass, it helps immensely to have made a full psychic capitulation to the feminist worldview. To be a collaborationist, in other words. Yes, you will find favor if you have won that Orwellian victory over yourself. If you have not so capitulated, or if you are not superhumanly clever at masking your true feelings, then the filters will catch you. If not today, then certainly in 10, 20, or 30 years, when detection algorithms have grown more sophisticated. So, it is easy to see that large blocks of the male population can, for various reasons, be excluded from feminist or female-dominated ways of making a living. When you realize that many of these vocational sectors define overclass membership at the level of economic prosperity, you will see that feminist or female domination of such fields will operate as a gatekeeping mechanism, governing precisely who, in terms of male demographic subgroups, will or will not infiltrate the overclass. In the end, the feminist worldview shall effectively colonize the overclass. Non-participation in this paradigm would, to males in particular, spell non-participation in the overclass for all but a few hardy mavericks. The overclass would then consist of empowered women and feminized men. The real power would, in the final analysis, lie in the hands of women. The female franchise on state violence, a form of proxy violence, would provide the brute force to assure the continuance of this system. But the final power at the very highest level will continue to repose in the hands of the so-called patriarchal, male-dominated elite, who will use women as tools to control the bulk of the male population with an effectiveness unprecedented in all of known human history. That's what they do. These powerful men empower women in order to keep less powerful men, as potential revolutionaries, on lockdown. Fiedelbogen. Out. I think I see there. You never know, it might prove useful. And don't forget that prediction is a pivotal point of counter-feminist analysis. I will cover some rather new ground, and although I am discussing the future, I am also talking about many things that are happening this very minute for the future. Yes, everybody should have a crystal ball. It is good to look into the future. Don't you think so? Today, if it won't impose on you, I'd like to gaze into a crystal and describe what I see there. Or at any rate, what bring in mind likewise certain algorithms of historical occurrence which play and replay in every drama that involves the human animal. We may venture in all confidence to paint our canvas in broad strokes that won't go far amiss. Hello, Fiedelbogen here. To my fellow workers in the vineyard, worldwide, greetings. The title of today's talk is The Political Landscape Which Lies Ahead, a roadmap, so that quite a few of these predictions are in fact nothing of the kind. They are already old and familiar. However, we all know that the present is the seedbed of the future. What is presently so may in time become more so. Bearing this in mind and bearing